There is some information to share with the committee, just in terms of the community engagement and those types of things. Maybe we can discuss that. If we end up not having a quorum, then I think we should save the important discussion that Council Cummings is prepared to share until we have quorum, so that there is fair dialogue among the committee members.
So the first communication, we have Paul Zomazak here from Economic Development to give an update on the cannabis dispensary. Would you like it to go first?
Yes, I have a question in terms of protocol. Is there any way to properly start a meeting without a quorum, or we can have discussion, and there not be any issue?
Chair Simmons, you can call the meeting to order, but we won't have a declaration of a quorum, but the meeting can be called to order. You won't be able to vote on minutes, but we will be able to, basically everything else with the agenda, with the exception of approval of the minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I would love a feedback from my colleagues on the committee, if you would like to continue waiting.
Good morning.
No discussion until we have quorum.
Good morning. So I'm not sure that we'll have quorum, but I think we should begin out of respect for everyone that has made it on time. And I think
Okay.
that we should have discussion with Council Cummings and then readdress it, just out of respect for everyone that has made it. So,
Okay, great. So I call this meeting to order. Thank you all for your attendance at our Reparations Committee meeting. We do not have a quorum. We will continue with discussion, and we will withhold any action items. It looks like those are limited to meeting minutes, so we are in good shape.
would you like for me to begin with the acknowledgement?
Yes, please. Thank you.
With great humility and deep gratitude, we honor the strength and endurance and sacrifice of our Black ancestors. We honor those enslaved African people whose forced labor was exploited for generations to help establish the economy of our region and the United States. We honor these Black ancestors who persevered despite the discriminatory laws and practices that created a racial caste system, legitimized anti-Black racism, and continue to plague our community today. It is only by recognition and understanding of these errors begun during our nation's origins and continuing today that we can hope to correct our path. We acknowledge this exploitation of not only minds and labor, but of our humanity. We grieve for those Black ancestors who, despite their contributions to the city's wealth and freedom, were never recognized, fairly compensated, nor allowed to fully realize their own sovereignty. Because of their work, we are here and will invest in the descendants of that legacy. And through this process, we work to repair some of the harms caused by the city of Evanston. We hope our focused attempts at reparation will serve as an example to the United States government and prompt other institutional accomplices to begin the process of repair. Evanston Reparations Committee.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And next we have item B on the agenda is testimonials. And so this is not to be confused with public comment. This is specifically to hear from Black residents in Evanston for up to 3 minutes on your lived experience, your personal case for reparations, and how you would like to see repair in Evanston. And Tashik, do we have anyone signed up for testimonials?
Yes, we have 3.
Okay.
Randall Livingston. Randall? I don't see a Randall Livingston online. We have Anthony Swope next.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you come up to the mic?
We're saying it's hard to do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could please make sure you speak into the mic so those online can hear you.
Okay, everybody hear me okay? Good morning again.
Good morning.
And I'm honored to be able to speak on behalf of my deceased wife who made her transition. I talked her into enrolling in this, I wouldn't say this, but the program for reparations. She was so set on saying that she didn't want a handout, and I was trying to tell her, of course, it's not the 40 acres and a mule, but it's a start. It's not like the community that I grew up in. I mean, if you would see it now, you would think it would be some community that's been ravaged by some storm like a Katrina, or something like that. But when I grew up, we had black high schools, grammar schools, teachers, any kind of activity you can imagine, entertainment, nightclubs, bars, community centers, swimming pools. You name it, we had it. The one thing that we lacked was a bank. We didn't have a bank. And we shared a hospital. But everything else, we had doctors too, lawyers, you name it, it was there. And so when I took her to visit my hometown, she was sort of like amazed that in this day and age that is, allotted to a black community. And I told her that the white community was ashamed not to let us have something equal to what they was. They didn't want to be living in a community where they had it all and people around them had nothing. They was willing to share. And so when I come to Evanston, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't talk some of the people in this community to get involved in the youth, establish some programs for them, open up centers, just a restaurant, someplace where they could go and listen to some soft music, be entertained, eat, dine. Of course, not drink too much, but the short of the story is that I feel honored to be in the presence of original Everstonians. And I like to call myself that too. However, of course, after being here and married to my wife for over 45 years before she deceased, I consider myself to be an Everstonian. And once again, I don't have any input to explain my gratitude for y'all accomplishments and y'all strength to go forward. I know you're going to be deterred by even some of our own people wondering why I didn't get this and they got that, and it's fighting over the crumbs that's thrown from the table. But there was just a comment I wanted to make. Thank you all for letting me do this. And whatever that I, as a spouse, may be able to qualify for in the name of my wife, the late Eleanor Swope, I would be thankful. Otherwise, I'm still thankful, whichever way it goes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Next is Melvin Williams. Melvin Williams? No, I don't think so. Okay. Next is Mr. Bennett Johnson.
Bennett?
Oh.
Good afternoon. I had a public comment, not testimonial, but because I have been here a little while, I can tell a few things.
Mr. Johnson, we can't hear you quite as well. If you could.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. As I said, I can tell a few things. Number one, I remember when I was 6 years old, my father had a job at 570 Milburn. He was a chauffeur and a gardener for one of the executives of the Inland Steel Company, Patton. And Arlington School was 3 blocks away from where we lived, my 2 sisters and I. And we had to walk, we weren't allowed to go to Arlington. And we had to walk to Noyes School, which was about a mile and a half, 2 miles away. And we passed white kids going to Arlington. And sometimes they would tease us. And I first got angry. Well, my first reaction was, if I was white, I'd be all right. And then said, no, that's not right. They don't know who we are. We got Paul Robeson. We got Marion Anderson. I'm going to teach them Joe Louis. I'm going to teach them who we are. I've been doing it ever since. The other thing I do, I have a concept called the Freedom Plan, which I would like to discuss at some point, which talks about how reparations can be dispensed and not be a one-night stand, but be set up institutions, capitalist institutions that would not only grow, but probably last for a long time. One was the Real Estate Investment Trust. Next one was the Venture Capital Group. Then a fund for education, health, and welfare, where people could do anything with the money they want. But my experience has been that I set up the first minority-owned Real Estate Investment Trust. I also was involved in the largest SBIC, Small Business Investment Corporation, and I know something about these things. And the only other thing I want to say is that in your acknowledgments, you forget one thing. Well, I'll be specific. When I went away to high school, when I graduated from high school and away to Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, in 1946, 2 couples had been lynched, black people had been lynched in Monroe, Georgia. And I think when you talk about acknowledgments, you have to talk about the fact that we were not only terrorized, we were actually killed, lynched with a real social active thing at that point. I think that should be in your acknowledgments at some point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
That is all that's signed up for a testimonial.
Okay. Next, we have items 2A and B, which we will hold to a future meeting. And we will move on to a very important discussion, 3A, update on the funding and disbursement. And there we'll have staff, I'm assuming Corporation Counsel Cummings and the team that he has working on that will give us an update.
Yes, good morning, Nicholas Cummings, Corporation Counsel. City Council voted to add as an option cash disbursement to recipients. I believe that was in March. All these months are now starting to blend together. And since then, we've been working diligently in terms of research, trying to figure out and make sure that whatever hurdles we might have to clear as a result. And so we are fairly confident, based on the advice we've gotten from a tax attorney, that the income, the definition of income would exclude payments that are considered restitution. And so this, our reparations initiative, if the cash payment is chosen, it is considered restitution. So we are confident that the IRS will not consider these payments as income. The question then moved to the state, and whether the state would consider it income. And so, according to the definition set out in the Public Aid Code, there is some concern, and our tax attorney would not give us definitive advice on this, that the state could view these payments as income or as money received. And so what that would do, that would put in danger those who are recipients of SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, those sort of entitlement benefits, if they reach a certain income threshold, they would no longer be eligible for those benefits. We did receive communication from the state that says that they use the same definition of income as the federal government. And if that's the case, then restitution payments should be excluded. However, I had a conversation with someone in Governor Pritzker's office yesterday, and he assured me that SNAP benefits would be no problem. That this is a restitution payment, wouldn't lose SNAP benefits. Medicare is a different story. And so there is still some concern over one of our ancestor group losing eligibility if they are a recipient of some of these benefits, losing eligibility as a result of receiving a lump sum payment of $25,000. I have requested specifically from this individual in Pritzker's office something in writing that definitively says yes or no, the restitution payment will be excluded. If it's a no, that it's not excluded, we have already talked to Mayor Biss, as well as this individual I talked to who knows Mayor Biss, who works for Governor Pritzker, about getting legislation passed that would exempt these sorts of payments from the state when it comes to the public aid code. Not so much concerned about the income tax for the state as we are about losing entitlement benefits. The income tax for the state, I think, would be the same as the income tax for the federal government. What we don't want is people losing benefits as a result of trying to actually help them, right? So you give them a cash payment, and then now they can't get health insurance. So still working on that. However, we have revised our form. Staff is still going to go ahead and still do interviews and meet with folks and get their selection. But the form has been updated to inform the public of this risk. And it's sort of, you choose at your own peril. If you want the full cash payment, there is that risk. We've made you aware of that risk. And we're still working to make sure that it's exempt in the future. But as of right now, I don't have a definitive answer when it comes to state entitlement benefits.
Thank you. Was there a threshold in terms of breaking up the payments for recipients and not interfering with their benefits?
Sure. So the threshold and it really depends on the size of the household. So for individual doesn't have any dependents, they live alone, the threshold is 200% of the state's quote-unquote poverty line, which equates to a little over $36,000 in annual income. So this individual will probably have to have $10,000 to $11,000 max that they're already getting before we gave them a lump sum payment of $25,000. Now the city could disperse it over time. I know that was a suggestion floated by staff that I don't think that some of the members of the committee like. However, if we still don't have a definitive answer from the state, or the answer is no, that is still the recommendation of staff, is that we disperse it over time, so that we don't mess up those income requirements that would put them at risk of losing any of those benefits.
That is one of, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Councilwoman Harris.
That is one of the recommendations that I believe makes sense, is that we try to split it over a 2-year process so that we don't jeopardize someone. There's always the possibility that there's benefits that we don't know about. Everybody is unique and individual in how they receive assistance, but I think if we split it into, and I know we can't vote on it today, but I want to put it out there, if we had 2 lump sums and 2 annual breakout of the amount, that might help people not run into that problem.
So there's 2, I don't want to call it difficulties, but 2 issues that arise with this that we had not administratively prepared for. Number one is we have to start collecting this income information now, right? We have to start asking our ancestors, particularly our ancestors, about how much income they're making, the sources of that income, and what other benefits they may be receiving. In order for us to be able to then disperse in a smart way so as not to put them at risk. And the second thing is, depending on what that income is and how much of it they are getting, it may be more than 2 years. It may take 3 or 4 disbursements so that we don't have them hit that. It's a little over $36,000 annually with this reparations payment. And what that brings apart for staff is greater administration, right? It's one of the things we had engaged SEPA for. Now that we're going cash payment to try and streamline that, we're bringing that aspect in-house. But even that, if we're going to do it over a schedule and about a time, that's a different administrative role. You know, we've started talking to finance about how to get this done. We've talked to accounts payable on how to get this done. I think everybody's on the same page as that, but we have not tackled if we have to make, you know, recurring or smaller payments.
That's going to be individualized, and I know that creates a whole backlog of staff and issues, but I think if we're very clear and have some type of signature, because there's also things you forget you get, right? I forgot I get this one benefit every other year, and that will be an odd year, and now I'm in jeopardy. At some point, we can only do so much. It will be up to the residents as well to be responsible for trying to remember that we can collect that data, but again, as long as we have a hold harmless something in writing that we say, we're doing our very best, but it's up to the person receiving the money. I learned this many years ago. I had a best friend on Wheel of Fortune and won, and backstage you have to pay the tax or you don't take that car with you, and you don't know that until you get there. So as long as we're up front as a city and say, when you get behind the curtain, here's what's due, we've done our part in giving you the money and giving you the resources.
Yeah, I'm very concerned, but I'm glad that we have some options. We have a practice in this community with forgivable loans. Could that be an option, like a loan to one of the recipients that they're not have to repay?
It's something that we can consider. I'll have to look into that. And so I'm grinning only because this is an option we floated under the old subcommittee, if Chair Simmons remembers.
Yes.
And typically when an entity like the government does that, there's usually some collateral for it. We actually do it, Paul Zalmazak's in the back, we do it with our business community as well, where we give storefront restoration grants. But there is still sort of a lien placed during the time of forgiveness. There's no payments, there's a time of forgiveness, but there's usually if something happens, the city can claw it back. That's how we do it with our business community. We just have to look into it how we would do it with individuals. It obviously would look a lot different, but that it was frowned upon in the early stages because of that lien. We don't want to lien anything.
Can I just say?
I want to just support what Councilwoman Chrissy is saying about it being individualized, and I think having an option and that everyone knows up front. But I also want us to be very careful about talking about requesting persons' incomes and information, because I think that could be invasive. And it is always the recipient's option whether or not to have the cash option. So I think we just need to be careful about how much we feel like we have to put into that.
I agree, Committee Member Lockhart, and I look forward to a more definitive response from, I guess it's the Governor's Office, Council Cummings, that you're waiting on to get final clarity, or are you feeling that you will never have final clarity and there will always be some risk?
No, I'm hopeful from this person with the Governor's Office. He is he's actually, you know, in the government structure. So HHS and DHS both report to him. So he would be the person, I would hope to be able to give me that answer. He knows that I'm coming, he knew I was coming to this meeting this morning, and so we were talking late yesterday afternoon. He actually called me back later in the evening. But so he's working to get us an answer. And then again, we have a contingency if he's not able to get us an answer that we like. We've already sort of put the bug in Mayor Biss's ear. I put the bug in this gentleman's ear that we need to have spring action in Springfield. Because the public aid code already exempts payments to Japanese Americans under the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. It is explicit in the Illinois Public Aid Code that we do not count these payments of restitution. So I don't understand why we couldn't get similar language in the public aid code. It just would have to wait until the next legislative session.
Yeah, that was my concern too. In previous reparation programs, going as far back as the Jewish reparations, the Indian reparations, now where they're giving casinos. My next concern was, is there any way we could put this in unclaimed funds with the state of Illinois that the recipient, and are those taxed?
I don't know about whether the unclaimed funds are taxed. I would really like to avoid that. And that's one of the reasons why we've updated our form yet again, and we've included the power, sort of the power of attorney forms for our ancestors so that it doesn't go into unclaimed funds, right? Or you have the option to designate someone else. You know, there's already these probate issues. We had a gentleman come up and talk about his wife was eligible and now she's deceased. Under probate law, he should get it, right? So I would love to avoid the treasurer's office. Nothing against the state treasurer, but I would love to avoid that if possible.
Are they explained that they have to have an affidavit, and where they could get that affidavit if the deceased person had not completed the beneficiary before we started that policy?
I'm not sure. I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're talking about like the decedent, the person who passed away, may not have filled out the designation form.
Yes.
It wouldn't matter. Probate law would control, right? So I don't know if they had children, but as the spouse, just by default, right? She had no will, she passed away, by default, spouse gets half, children get the other half. That's just,
But they still have to present an affidavit, don't they?
they just have to present the proof of the marriage and the death certificate to the probate court, generally.
So I just want us to work towards not having a blanket. If it boils down to, for the protection of some of the recipients, a divided disbursement is best, I definitely don't want us to have that as a blanket. Very much like how those that are receiving a home improvement benefit have the option to use a construction project manager or not, I would want us to leave that as an option, because all of the recipients won't have a set of circumstances that would prevent us from dispersing $25K in one lump sum.
And to Committee Member Lockhart's point, it is an option, right? And we put all this language in the form to say, hey, we're telling you up front, this is what could happen. So, you know, we're really only collecting that information for their benefit. If they don't want to share it and they still want the money, it's their option. They're taking the risk. We're just trying to help them manage the risk, because at the end of the day, the whole point of these payments is that they get the benefit of the money. It's not really a benefit if your Medicaid is taken away, or if you lose your food stamps, or something else negative happens as a result of you getting this money. So we don't have to collect the information, but it's done with the purpose of trying to offer assistance.
And just to clarify, I mean, Medicare is a federal program, so you said federally it is not counted.
So Medicare and Medicaid are different.
Right.
So
Medicaid is a state program.
right, and so the Medicaid, and if I said Medicare earlier, I apologize, I misspoke. It's Medicaid that would be at risk.
Okay.
Medicare is a non-issue. I don't think Social Security is affected. So what we're concerned about is if they reach this, whatever benefits that the state gives under the Illinois Public Aid Code, and then you go over $36,000, you potentially lose that. That's what we're concerned about.
Right. And this, I hope the state is considering this a priority, especially with the reparations commission being established at the state of Illinois or in the process of completing its appointments. This is programming and decisions that they'll need. Other communities, not that that is our concern or responsibility, will be learning from the possibility of disbursement, especially as cash payments become more popular for reparations. So with that note, I heard you say that staff is going to continue with the intakes or the meetings.
Yes. And Audrey is here, she wants to speak to that. But yes, I think we need to start getting rolling and at least to collect the information. Yeah, so who wants what is at the very least what we can get. And from my understanding from the financial report, we have the cash to start dispersing, so.
So here's my question regarding that. We do have the cash and we have the ancestors in queue. Is there anything stopping us from dispersing those that are not complicated? Those that don't have entitlement programs, those that are choosing cash, and those that have gone through the process with Director Audrey and her team to determine if they want cash or whatever it is they want. I know that Tashik and the interns started the process several weeks ago, and the process is starting back up. But is there anything in the way of us, especially since we took unanimous committee action and city council supported that we disperse now on a rolling basis, so we don't have to wait for big chunks like the 400,000 for the initial disbursement? Is there any reason why we can't begin dispersing as we identify recipients who want a transaction that is pretty seamless?
There's nothing that stops it. I think the question I was just posed was, we have sort of a, for lack of a better way to describe it, an order. And so, if numbers 20 and 21 still want home improvement, but there's a backlog because of SEPA's, lack of availability, but like 23 and 24 want cash, 23 and 24 can get their cash. I don't think that there's anything that's stopping us from that. Now, you might hear some outcry about fairness, but, again, we are allowing the recipients to choose their remedy, and if you choose this remedy that takes longer, we're working, and I think one of the things on the agenda is we're hiring, try and bring somebody else on to help with the backlog that SEPA has, so.
Can I ask though, if someone
Well,
wants
but
their.
in that thought, that was the case even in the first round of 16. So
Right.
there were, I believe, a couple that had mortgage reduction, if I'm not mistaken, at least one for sure. And there were others that had home improvements that, were as much as a year out. So if we can look at our budget and then look at the recipients to that budget, whatever that threshold is, and then work through that list, dispersing those that are eligible to disperse immediately, I'm asking that staff move forward with that action. I think we all are. I think the community wants it, the committee, we're hearing from residents daily on what's next on this number, when do we receive our benefits? So if there's nothing standing in the way, I would love to see staff move forward with that.
As far as I know, there's nothing, if the option is chosen, there's nothing, we've already talked to finance, we've worked it out, there's nothing really stopping us from dispersing it directly from the reparations fund.
I have a question. So will people now be re-asked their choice? Because if my only choice was home improvement, now I can do the 25 and move rapidly. Are we going to readdress those in the queue?
That is up to the committee.
Okay.
Well, I can respond to that because that's happening in the home visits or off-site visits if the recipients don't want a home visit. So Audrey and her team, Tashik, whatever staff is getting that information there, and we had paused. I think we only had a handful of these intake meetings and paused to get clarity from Council Cummings on disbursement and cash and all of that. Audrey, can you correct me or give us any more information on that?
So, yes, that is being addressed in each of the home visits. So at that time when the cash payments were approved, we did go back to those who had already had their home visits, and they secured which option they wanted. And so we're all good. So the first 16, they've already made their option except for 2, or they made it but have not been provided that option. And so those 2 will be readdressed, but the others they're already in the process. So I think our question now is, if someone has money left, can they opt to say, I have $3,000 left, I would like that to be in cash?
Well, we always said that it can be broken up, whether it be a partial mortgage reduction and a partial home improvement. So I don't see where that would differ for this additional benefit, in my opinion. I don't think there's really much to revisit there. If we're allowing them to break up mortgage reduction, home improvement, why wouldn't we allow this 4th option to be also divided?
We totally understand. I think we were talking about the first 16 with exception to the 2. Are we
Some of
revisiting?
them have balances, is that what you're saying?
Yes. So are they able to say, I would just like the rest of the balance to be in cash?
I think the same response applies.
Okay.
But if there's a committee discussion on that, it's possible I'm missing.
I agree.
But I think it's the same.
I agree we can discuss it, but we can't make a decision as we don't have quorum, so.
This direction is not, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Committee member Lockhart, did you have something else on this topic?
No, I was just going to talk about the mortgage reduction is also something that can be done immediately. And so that the cash option and the mortgage reduction both can be done immediately, so let's just start doing it.
Director Thompson, is there anything further you want to add in terms of the process and the visits?
Just that we are currently scheduling. We do have 2 other individuals that will be helping, so we can expedite the process. And as you all know, it's a pretty lengthy home visit, but very necessary. So all of the paperwork, line by line, is reviewed. And I know that you all had some discussion regarding income, but we currently ask income not as a requirement, but because there are several other programs that we discuss. I always, just make a little comment, do you mind if I get in your business a little bit?
No.
And I have not had one person say no.
Great.
So when I talk to them about the Evanston benefit card, rebuilding together, they'll say, oh, I don't qualify for any of those. Or they'll say, oh, I'm already on the program. And so that's a discussion that I have not had an issue. I think the difference now will be, losing your taxi cab coupon is quite different than losing your Medicaid. And so I think the consequences of the information that they're providing, we just have to make sure that they understand that if there is something that's inaccurate or not in full, then that could have a dire consequence to their benefits related to Medicaid. So I think we will move full speed ahead. Some of these will not be a lengthy home visit, because if you don't want to discuss any of these other options and cash is your option, we move ahead.
Great.
Thank you. And so is there any further discussion? This is actually, we moved into discussion item 3B. Any further discussion on the intake process? Okay, we'll move on to discussion item 3C. This is the Reparations Committee Working Group. We have had great participation from the community, signing up for your working groups. We have leadership from our committee that will be chairing or leading these working groups. So can we get any update? I know that we have some working group leaders that are here. If you have selected your meeting day and cadence or anything else that you would like to share, and then Tashika, if there's anything that you're prepared to share.
Yeah, I think some of the chairs, the housing committee working group, for example, is gonna have their meeting in person.
Mhm.
They're gonna meet with all the applicants.
June 22nd is going to be our meeting here at the city of Evanston. And Bobby and I were talking about the number. We were so excited. There was such a great interest in participating on the committee. And so we really don't want to limit it right now because we know there was some talk about only having 7 members of a working group. But I understand we had almost 25 persons who signed up. So we want to invite them all to the first meeting and talk about where we go from there.
And I
So
think-
that's June 22nd at 6 p.m.
And I think for some of the other groups, they're waiting to add members. So we can have this on the next agenda for approval when those groups are finalized.
Okay. Do we have to have a committee action before they can have their first meeting?
I don't think so.
Right,
Because we established the working already, so.
right. So what are you saying approval about?
Yeah, the actual members, the members of the group.
Got it, okay. So, thank you, Committee Member Lockhart and everyone that is taking lead. This will create space for community to have dialogue and actually input and work together. I'm hoping that each chairperson of these working groups will start with the 2019 recommendations that came from the community as a baseline. The recommendations are very similar, so you will see that full list and see where it falls into your area or the entry area that you're working on. This is a great place for one, if not each of the working groups to hear Mr. Bennett Johnson's proposal on the Freedom Plan that he's been sharing. So I do hope that Mr. Johnson has signed up for one of the working groups as well.
We're excited. So Mr. Sutton and myself are the Education Committee, and we have not set a date as we will be working with the committee to find a time that is appropriate for all of us to meet, but we're very excited about the many possibilities of creating reparations in the educational field, because we know for sure that one thing that you can never take away from someone is the education in which they receive. So we're excited about the possibilities.
Awesome, I can't wait. Just as a note to make sure if a representative from STEM School Evanston hasn't signed up, that we do reach out to Henry Wilkins. If not him, someone from his org should definitely be participating, because they have been working on reparations and educations for years.
Okay, they have not, so I'll reach out to him personally. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So no further discussion there. Let's move on to item 2D, community engagement. We are hoping that more committee members will sign up to be in community. Committee member Barbara McFarland and myself were at the arts market at the Maple Garage a few weeks ago. It was great. There were really good questions from the community. We had community members sign up for notices from the Reparations Committee, others that signed up for working groups. We were able to share accurate information, be challenged, and bring back new ideas to the committee. So there is a list that you can sign up for events. Also, this is a notice to the community. If you are having an event that you want a Reparations Committee member present at for any type of Q&A or tabling, please let us know. We have a a table and collateral to share information, our legislative timeline, other information that can be helpful. Is there any further discussion on this from the committee or staff? Perfect. Well, there's a ton of events this summer, and over the summer, we hope to see more of you in community. And then we have item 2E, our next acknowledgement dinner. So if you remember, for our first 16, we had an acknowledgement dinner where our ancestors were honored, and there was a program, and the mayor and other council people and other community leaders. There was libation by Dr. Gilo, Logan, and a really important occasion. We will do this again with the recipients. We will do it when we have more than 16. So Tashik has a goal to get a more robust number. And we want everyone to save the date for this acknowledgement dinner on July 10th.
Chair
The
Simmons?
last one was in the Parasol Room here at the Civic Center, and it's to be determined if it'll be there, if the larger number will have capacity. But please do save the date for July 10th. That Monday is important that we have it on a Monday when the council is meeting, in case the council wants to come down before their meeting and meet and engage with the ancestors.
Council.
And I recommend that we have a committee. I don't think this is something that needs to come to a committee meeting, but kind of a working group. So if you want to be involved in the planning of the dinner, last time we gave plaques and acknowledgements to each of the recipients. We'll do something similar this time. If you want to be involved in planning, please do work directly with Tashik on that.
Chair Simmons?
Yes.
As a council member, I'm just worried. July 10th, we have a robust set of meetings, and 3 of the members are on this committee. The mayor will not be able to be there that day because it is a city council. We have AP&W, P&D, and then city council. Unless it begins at 4, our day begins at 5, or 4:45.
Yeah, we figured it out last time so that it was before committee started for council.
Okay.
And that way it's not adding another day. They can just come up from the council chambers or down, come up from
We go
council
up.
chambers.
Okay.
Otherwise, the conflict is, there's too much stuff on the calendar, so.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm just saying we won't be able to be there, and I think I'd rather add a day, unfortunately, to my day than to miss this and to have the mayor. The optics of all of that will create a problem of why aren't council and the mayor there. So just something to think
I want to
about.
be clear that this is with consideration of the council, all of the council, the committee, of course, the mayor and the rest of the city council. So if you want to talk with Tashik about the time of the dinner that was considered, but the dinner is suggested to be on a Monday when there is a council meeting, since you all are in the building and you can come down. So let's discuss this more, but that was the thinking, and that's how it worked best last time. Committee member.
Okay, thank you.
Lockhart?
Yes, Chair Simmons, I just want to look at the calendar. It's June 1st. And July 10th is a mere 6 weeks away. We have not really gotten our new recipients in place yet. And the summer is the busiest time of the year for most people. I'm just wondering if we could look at a different date that's a little further down the road to give everybody time to plan to be there. It's a big event. The one we had before was superb. And maybe, August or September might be a better time to have more time to plan for it and to not have it interfere as much. I understand the council meeting situation, and I think that's great that it's on a day so the council is here. But I just think for the people we want to invite, their families, they need a lot more time to plan. And so July 10th is pretty close.
So I'm concerned about I get that we have to time and planning and calendars and all of this, but I would just like to see more urgency. Just, I think that we can, set a goal and maybe we discuss it more.
Okay.
But we have not had nearly enough activity. We're still dealing with the same 16 recipients, the same 16 that have been honored, and we have taken significant committee and council action so that we can disperse. We can do it on a rolling basis. We can now deliver cash. We have 4 interns that we didn't have before. We have a grant from Chicago Community Trust to hire a staff person. We have overcome so many barriers that are keeping us from delivering so that we can even move on to what a next benefit might be. So I'm very reasonable and would love to continue discussing this, but I would like to see more activity sooner than later. And I get everyone's busy. No time is great for any of us. We can do it on consensus. Maybe everybody can't be everywhere, but I do want us to start setting hard dates and deadlines and sticking to them as much as possible.
Yes, I get it and the urgency. And I hear you, and I do. I want to celebrate. I always want to celebrate our accomplishments. Even through our struggles, we should be celebrating because you come through a struggle, so you want to celebrate. I just would feel it adds one more date to my calendar, but this is something I want to add versus some of the other things that I don't. And to not have anyone from the council really be able to be there and celebrate. The optics are awful. I want to be there with our residents. So if we started at 4, yes, but the mayor has to be somewhere. So I was just thinking the next Monday. I don't know if September, because as we are dealing with ancestors, they transition. So we know tomorrow this all could be a different story. So I was just asking for that because I think it's important we're there. September might be late. I think we can discuss offline and figure out something that's amenable for everybody. But the celebration, we need to do that. Again, wins and losses, you always want to celebrate because there's a learning curve in there. So thank you.
So I must say one last thing about this, and I'm not sure where I am missing the point. The point of the meeting being on July 10th was because there is a committee meeting and the council will be in the building. So am I missing that? What part am I missing? Because you're saying the mayor can't be there.
Well, so we start, our council doesn't start till 6 or 7, but we have 2 meetings before that. That myself, Council Reed, and
fully aware of that. Was on the 80th City Council. So
Right.
I get that there are standing committee meetings before that. My hope was that Tashik had that in mind when we were looking at this date. So if that didn't happen, maybe let's just take this conversation offline.
Yeah, the time frames are different from when you sat. We're now a little earlier. We're starting earlier, and there's more of us on those committees. So we'll take it offline. We'll figure it out. Again, I just want us to be there. It's not about us, but us recognizing our residents. Because it's not about me. I don't have to be there. But we know that that will be a problem. If the 3 black council members are not there, we're going to hear about it until the next celebration. So I just want to work it out. But we can. It's an easy fix. Thank you.
Right, and I think, priorities set. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll get it together.
Okay, next on our agenda is communication. So there's been a lot of discussion about a new dispensary coming to Evanston in the 8th Ward. Do we have Paul Zonderbeck that's here to give us an update on that dispensary?
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, thank you for being here, Paul. If you could give us any update, because we're, been hearing from the community. We want to know how this might accelerate the funding of our reparations fund since it's a recreational dispensary.
Will do. Thank you, Chair Simmons, members of the committee, and my fellow community members. It's always an honor to come to this historic committee. I appreciate it. And my job's easy because I'm just reporting on what other people are doing to bring success to Evanston. The project you're referencing, Chair Simmons, that's on the agenda is the OK Dispensary. That is going to be on the first floor of the new residential building located at Howard and Chicago Avenue, where Clark meets up with Howard. It's on the northwest corner. Just for some quick background, that was a city-owned parking lot. It's the first one that we've converted to, instead of housing cars, we're going to house people, right? This is like a 30 unit, 28 unit property. Approximately, I think there are 5 affordable housing units restricted to individuals earning no more than 80% of AMI. So a one-person household, which is the likely occupant of one of those apartments, can earn no more than $67,000 to live in those apartments. So that's just some background, and we're going to try to do more of that throughout the city moving forward. But at the base of that building is around 5,000 square feet. Half of the retail space will be committed to a concept called OK Dispensary. The other half is Westtown Bakery. They are divided spaces. You have to be 21 or older to enter the dispensary. You access it through the bakery. They're same ownership, just different business units. That will open in September. They're on a fast track. They've got a good group. They're currently in build-out mode. They described it as a 13-week build-out, which I've never heard of. I mean, usually people say 90 days, but they're very specific about their build-out timeline. And then we imagine once they start accepting payment, within 30 days, the 3% municipal tax will start rolling in on that. So I imagine, let's be conservative, we'll see payments rolling in November 1 is my estimate. Are there any questions about that development?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Paul, before you leave, are you
Yes.
giving the report 5B, minority MWEBE
No.
contracting fair?
No, I will.
Okay.
So the reparations
Thank you.
committee. The reparations committee spoke about partnering with the MWE committee regarding a fair to attract contractors.
Can't hear you. There's another one. There you go.
Yes. So the reparations committee talked about partnering with the MWEBE on holding a contracting fair or some type of event to attract contractors for the reparations program. So on June 13th, that committee is hosting a business contracting fair. And it will be held at Fleetwood Jordan Community Center. The flyer is in the packet.
Thank you. Is there any committee discussion on that? Next, we have item 5C, and this is the job posting that will be working full-time with the Reparations Committee to accelerate the process of those that are choosing home improvement. This position did not cost the committee anything. It did not come from funding from the Reparations Fund or the City of Evanston Fund. This is funded by a grant from the Chicago Community Trust. And if there's any discussion, let's have the discussion, but also feel free to share the job posting with those that you know in community, ideally, that are qualified. No discussion. Item 5D is our reparations financial report.
So as of June 1st, the city has received $43,077 in donations to the reparations fund. as to the real estate transfer tax, we have received $1,128,460. So if you're doing the math, just the real estate transfer tax alone, that's 45 recipients. And that is it.
Thank you. And that's encouraging news because that, of course, we know we can't get a report on our cannabis sales tax revenue. And so that's just on the real estate transfer tax. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has residents reaching out like, hey, I'm number 23, I'm number 35, what's happening, what's next? So I hope the community is encouraged by that report. And is there any committee discussion on that?
That's exciting news. Like you said, we're going to keep moving and give people what they've been waiting for, and that's very exciting, so thank you.
Awesome. And then Tashik, if you can add a report ongoing on how many we have dispersed starting next month, how many additional we have dispersed, so that there's some transparency with the community that we're moving forward with disbursement.
Okay.
Thank you. And then lastly, we have 5E, upcoming meetings. So we talked about having listening sessions for meetings once a quarter, I believe. So July 6th will be a listening session. That's going to be important. We can share updates on how the program has changed, finance updates and so on. But we also want to hear from the community. This will be more of a dialogue versus our formal process where we have public comment, where we don't engage. So please do come prepared to participate on July 6th. And now we will go straight into public comment. 1 second, pull up the list. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 signed up for public comment. It looks like 2 spoke at the testimonial, so maybe we don't have 13, but let's go ahead and get started with 2 minutes. And if someone can have a timer in the meeting room. First we have Randall Livingston.
Randall? He's not here.
Is it Randall on the virtual meeting?
No, he's not on the virtual meeting either.
Okay. Next we have Anthony Spook.
He spoke.
But
He
might-
spoke already.
He might have a public comment.
Do you have a public comment?
Ma'am,
Do you wish to speak again?
again?
No, we wanted to just make sure.
I was just saying how proud I was to be included as an
Hold
Everstonian.
on, he's still talking.
PDL.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're good.
Is there PDL Frost?
Nope, no online.
No? Okay. Miss Tina Payton.
I'm gonna unmute Miss Payton, she's online.
She's here.
Okay.
Oh, she's here.
She's here.
Okay, she's in person.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to speak for our ancestors again. All this time spending on dinners, stall tactics, showboating in front of the media.
If Miss Payton is speaking, we can't hear her virtually.
Can you hear me now?
No.
She said you couldn't hear me online.
Can you hear her?
We hear now.
I'm speaking for our ancestors. You spend a lot of time on dinners, stall tactics, showboating, canceling meetings, and time with the media, instead of what's really important, which is getting this $25,000 to people who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s and plus, who may be one step closer to the grave as we keep continuing on. It appears that you're waiting for people to die. All sorts of mostly white people have received grant money in this city without penalty, retail, restaurants, millions of dollars. Attorney Cummings stated to Mr. Sutton that he found a way to do a cash payment without tax over 9 months ago. You are not the IRS. Give people their money and let them figure out what to do. You do not need to find out how much their income is. We are being victimized all over again as Black people by this committee and the reparations. You're spending time in front of cameras, but not paying the Black citizens their money. People got stimulus money. All of us here in this room got stimulus money from the government without being taxed. You can find the same way to do the same thing. The money should be in a Black bank, in an interest-bearing account. No non-for-profits involved in distributing money or holding money. Income and expenses reported quarterly, and a third party should oversee this money. You found a way for cash payment for $3.4 million the city approved for ancestors. Quit pretending there's no money in this fund. Pay the people their money now.
Next we have Terry Chancellor.
Terry Chancellor. Terry Chancellor, are you online? No.
Mr. Johnson, does Mr. Johnson want to have an additional comment?
Yes, he does. He said it to the microphone now.
Did he say yes? I can't hear.
Yes, he did. He's on his way to the mic.
I'm one of those that takes a little more time to get to the mic than it used to. After Tina spoke, I realized that it's important for us to understand there's no way that you can pay Black folks for the problems that they had in the city of Evanston. So the money is not so much desired, but it's kind of insulting. But that's okay. It's a good gesture, and the whole point is that if we do it right, and I think my plan is the right way, of course. If we do it right, it will be an example for the entire country. So I think Evanston should be proud of the fact that they recognize the fact that Black folks in this town, every one of them, has been insulted, degraded, and hurt, and injured by discrimination and racism in Evanston. Thank you.
Vanessa, are you online?
No signal.
She's not in the room.
She's online.
Oh,
We
hold
lose
on
our
one
signal.
second. Hold on.
Yeah, they're on my computer.
Hi,
Okay.
everybody. Oh, I can't go on camera. Woo. But hello. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I don't think I'll take 2 minutes. But I, even when I signed up, I didn't even know what I would share. But I watched the 1619 project on Channel 7, I think it was last night or 2 nights ago. And the city of Evanston was mentioned when it talked about reparations. And so I just wanted to encourage the committee, as I often try to do, say something positive and uplifting, because there's always something negative that can be said, but I like to focus on the positive. And I found out something today, something new. Did you all know that today is National Say Something Nice Day? And so I came to say something nice. So thank you to the committee and to the staff, to everyone that has played a part into getting us to where we are today. It takes time and it takes hard work. So I'm just coming to say something nice, that you are appreciated, and keep doing what you're doing, because it is making a difference, not just here in Evanston, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all that I have for today. Thank you. Thank you. Please sign up for a lifetime reparations committee meeting comments. We're so encouraged by you. Next we have Mayako Rosenthal.
They're not online, and I don't see them in the room.
Okay, next we have Sandra Wright.
Sandra Wright? They're not online and they're not in the room.
Next we have Rose Cannon.
Rose Cannon? Let me check if she's online. I don't see her online either.
Next we have James Keat,
James Keith?
Keitt,
He's not online.
and Melody Beckham.
She's not online. Melody, can you unmute?
Good morning, Melody. If you're speaking, we can't hear you yet.
Melody, can you unmute? I'm asking you to unmute. Okay. Come back.
Okay, if Melody gets your mic working, we'll come back. Our final speaker is Laredo Regular.
Laredo?
No, not really. I
Okay.
signed up though.
Oh, wait, yes. He's not in the room or online. I'm gonna get the public comment list for those in the room. You go ahead.
What do you mean the public comment for list for those in the room?
The-
People who signed up in person.
outside.
There's two lists? Excuse me, are there two lists?
I think it was an online list and then people that came in person, so you may not see the in-person list.
All right, sir, are you Laredo Regular?
No,
No.
I'm Nick
Or
Murphy.
Nick Murphy.
Okay, can you give me the other list to sheet, please? Please, thank you for being here.
Sure. My name is Nick Murphy from the 1200 block of Pittner. Good morning. I'd like to start this public comment today by extending the utmost gratitude and appreciation to the members of this committee.
Talk in the mic.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'd like to extend my utmost appreciation and gratitude to the members of this committee for the work that you have already done. I'm extremely proud to be a Black Everstonian and represented by this esteemed group and its efforts. However, we know that systemic oppression and mechanisms of inequality are still very much present and alive today. As recently as February 23rd of this year, I myself shouldered that burden of our plight again when I was maliciously and illegally terminated from my employment and evicted from my company apartment because a white coworker from another state's lies and efforts to seize my job and my home and my livelihood for themselves. It was for that reason and for other distractions that I did not receive this committee's invitation to join a reparations committee work group. I know some of you personally. Most of you have seen my face at these meetings and have an idea of my passion and desire to continue to work for equality for Black Americans here in Evanston and across our country. So my appeal to you today is that if at all possible, the deadline for application for reparations committee work group be extended again, or that some other exception be created so that myself and other interested parties in the community have a chance to participate in this important work along with you. And I'm asking you to please extend the deadline to participate in the reparations committee work groups. Thank you.
Did we have a hard deadline on those applications?
We did extend it for another 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the deadline, we extended it. The deadline, I can pull up the deadline.
Okay. So one thing about the working groups is my understanding that they're public meetings. So even if not designated a member, and I may be wrong, and maybe it'll be case by case. And if someone could meet with him and see which working group he's interested in and figure out how he can participate?
Yes.
Yes, he indicated education, so we'll touch base with him.
Perfect, and that was Nick Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, next we have Maurice Bell for public comment.
Maurice Bell?
I didn't start out.
Okay,
But I'm happy to be here.
oh, okay.
She didn't have a public comment.
Okay, and then we have Miss Priscilla Giles.
Good morning. I'm sure that I'm not the only person who feels this way, but I just feel like that reparations should be for all of the black people in Evanston. There are too many black, there's not enough money to pay for everyone who has been discriminated against. People have left the city of Evanston, because they could not afford to stay here after they were discriminated against. So even the dates that were put there, the dates that are for reparations should not exist, because redlining began before, not just redlining, discrimination before the dates that are put there continue until today, as the young man just spoke a few minutes ago. There's not enough money, but there can be an institution that is put in the city of Evanston that would benefit all of the people in Evanston, all of the black people in Evanston. I don't see how you can have an application for people to apply for something like that when there are so many other people. So many people. Even in this room, I'm sure there are people who would qualify for reparations. So it should not be for a lottery. It should be for something that would benefit all of the black people. Something, if there's enough money to pay for 16th, and if there is enough money to build an institution that would be that would benefit all. I got a telephone call from someone who is from Bangladesh, who thought that this was a foolish way to have a few people when all of the people should benefit. I'm just disappointed. Thank you.
And since we don't have quorum, we had some items that will be held. And is there any final comment from the committee before we adjourn about anything?
Well, what day are we gonna open up for new applicants who did not meet the original deadline? Yeah, we need to.
That would be a discussion.
Well, when we have our July 6th info session, let's have that as a response, because that question
Please.
comes up a lot.
Yes.
And there'll be more process involved, but let's have that as one of the questions that we answer.
Thank you.
Perfect. And with that, I hope everyone is enjoying their summer. You should see the committee out in community. Let us know if there's someplace you want us to be, and a committee member will be there. Thank you, and have a great day.